Every year, coaster enthusiasts travel far and wide to ride the newest roller coasters, and I am no exception. I ended 2023 with 127 coasters, and in 2024 I added 93 new ones to my credit count. My full ranking for all of my 220 coasters is coming soon, but today I'm going through the 93 new ones, from the smallest ones to some of the biggest in the world. These are my new coasters of 2024 ranked. Before we do jump in, I do count separate tracks of racing coasters as individual coasters, so I will be taking out 3 of the ones I did do, making this a list of 90. 90 through 83 are all kids or family coasters, so I will quickly speed through those to get to the good stuff. In order, we have the Great Pumpkin Coaster at Kings Island and Wilderness Run at Cedar Point. Decent little coasters for kids, but obviously this isn't what I'm looking for in a ride. Woodstock Airways at Kings Island, a solid suspended coasters for families, but it's way too shaky for my liking. Woodstock Express at both Carowinds and Kings Island, fun little wooden coasters for families. Superman Krypton Coaster at Six Flags Mexico and Woodstock Express at Cedar Point. A little more thrilling than the previous rides, Woodstock Express having the advantage because I find the bell cute. And finally, Coastersaurus at Legoland, California. It's really janky, but the Lego dinosaur in the middle adds a lot for me, and it's easily the best of the kids coasters on this list. Jumping into the bigger rides at 82 with Tumbili at King's Dominion. I never really cared for free spins, and outside of the nice rock work in the area, this one didn't do it for me. I'm just not a free spin fan. 81 is the Lego Technic Coaster at Legoland, California. This Wild Mouse has a really solid drop, and I love the Lego Technic trains, but the trims take all of the bite out of this ride. 80 is Blazing Fury at Dollywood, a solid dark ride coaster hybrid, but it has probably seen better days, and it's not as thrilling as its defunct counterpart at Silver Dollar City. 79 is Tsunami at Six Flags Mexico. This ride's rockwork and comically large trains are a blast. It's janky and full of charm. 78 is Mystery Mine at Dollywood. This Gerstlauer is painful. Most of the ride just crawls, the ending has potential, and I love the fire before the drop, but the headbanging makes this really hard to enjoy, and I'm not dying to ever rewrite it. 77 is Ricochet at Carowinds. This is a much more enjoyable Wild Mouse than Lego Technic, but I'm not too big on Wild Mice in general. This one has some violent airtime and is definitely one of the better ones I've done. 76 is Cedar Creek Mine Ride at Cedar Point. This mine train is just really lacking. It doesn't have the scenery of some of the other tame ones, and it doesn't have the thrills of the lesser themed ones. It's fine for families, but it's probably the worst aero mine train. 75 is the Dragon at Legoland, California. This ride is similar to Woodstock Express at Cedar Point and Superman Krypton Coaster at Six Flags Mexico. However, the dark ride section with all the Legos in the beginning puts this way above those. It's not a crazy ride, but there's something so charming about the Lego theme on this coaster. 74 is Good Gravy at Holiday World. This family boomerang is a great addition to the park, being a coaster all ages can enjoy, but I'm not as crazy about these family boomerangs as most. 73 is the backwards track on Superman Escape from Krypton at Six Flags Magic Mountain. Launching backwards at 100 miles per hour makes this ride a completely different experience, and that view of the park when you reach the top of the spike is the cherry on top. 72 is Dragonflyer at Dollywood. This modern suspended coaster is a really fun ride, but I was expecting a little bit more after my rides on Phoenix last year. Really great ride, but it can be way better. 71 is Carolina Gold Rusher at Carowinds. This Aero Mine Train is just missing something. The two halves of the ride are really fun, but it just feels so short. Right when the ride is getting good, you rush back into the station. If this ride had a third lap, I would probably enjoy it more, but right now it didn't do too much for me. 70 is Rougarou at Cedar Point. This is a B&M floorless conversion of the stand-up coaster Mantis, and everything about it makes me yearn for the deceased Green Lantern more and more. This ride has such a promising layout and runs smooth as glass, but the sit-down trains take away all of its forces. I have never gotten a more tame back row ride, and it makes me upset that it gets to stick around while its better stand-up counterpart got scrapped. 69 is Spinning Dragons at Worlds of Fun. This is one of the many Gerstlauer Pandemonium clones, and this one didn't really impress me. It had some of the worst operations I've ever seen on a coaster, and the spinning really didn't do much for me this time around. I've been on better rides of this same model. 68 is Boomerang at Worlds of Fun. Not much to say here, this is your standard Vekoma Boomerang. I found this one to be the best of the standard ones. Really smooth, really forceful, just a solid compact coaster. 67 is Pony Express at Knott's Berry Farm. This family launch coaster has a really punchy launch, and I really enjoyed what it had to offer. I just wish it wasn't that short. Throw in another lap and it'd be perfect. 66 is Hurler at Carowinds. This wooden coaster is the punching bag of the park, but I didn't mind it. The drop is really good and there's some decent airtime in the first half, but it does die in the second. It's nothing special, but it's not the worst in the park like many like to say. 65 is Carolina Cyclone at Carowinds. This aero looper hurts. Its inversions are pretty solid, but everything else has seen better days. I have no real desire to revisit this when I have a better version of it in my backyard. 64 is Raptor at Cedar Point. This B&M invert is one of the most disappointing coasters I got on this year. I expected so much more from it, but it offered nothing but filler track and headbanging. It's one of the only inverts I have ever done that felt like it was just going through the motions. 63 is Timberwolf at Worlds of Fun. This coaster can definitely use some more speed, but it isn't too bad. The drop was really good in the back row, and for the most part it was just a better version of Hurler. 62 is Gatekeeper at Cedar Point. This one isn't too bad, but I was also expecting so much more. It has some decent positive G's in the drop, okay airtime, but a lot of the time it's just sitting there looking pretty, and I had more fun watching it than riding it. 61 is the Rocky Top Mountain Coaster in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. I got 2 rides on my first mountain coaster after leaving Dollywood, and it was a really fun and unique experience. A bit freaky going into the forest in the dead of night, but having control of the ride was so much fun, and the laterals on some of those turns are crazy. 60 is Flight of Fear at King's Dominion. I have been on both the outdoor versions of this ride, but the indoor was a whole new ballgame, and for the most part I really liked it. The alien theming on the outside was a nice touch, and a coaster in complete darkness is always awesome. 59 is Adventure Express at Kings Island. This Aero Mine Train is a blast from start to finish. Although the ending leaves a bit to be desired, the rest of the ride is awesome. It is easily one of the best Aero Mine Trains I've been on. 58 is Vortex at Carowinds. The hate this ride gets is way overblown. It was a solid ride with some decent forces, and I really enjoyed it for the most part. It is way better than Firebird at Six Flags America, and I would ride it again. 57 is Giant Dipper at Belmont Park. This classic wooden coaster doesn't offer much airtime, but its laterals are insane. It's smooth, chaotic, and only $8 a ride. Everything I could hope for from a classic wooden coaster. 56 is Fire Chaser Express at Dollywood. This family coaster is really fun. The forward section is great, but that backward launch is the highlight. It is, however, outshined by Dollywood's other options. 55 is Patriot at Worlds of Fun. Not the strongest invert I've done, but a fun one nonetheless. It has some solid elements and inversions and runs glass smooth. 54 is Valraven at Cedar Point. I actually really enjoyed most of this dive. Great airtime, fantastic inversions, it's just so damn short. If it was a walk-on, I might have liked it more, but that 45-minute wait had me expecting way more than that. Still the best B&M at Cedar Point. 53 is Iron Dragon at Cedar Point. These aero suspended coasters are always charming as hell, and while this is the worst one I've been on, it's still really fun. This type of ride needs to make a comeback. 52 is Blue Streak at Cedar Point. This wooden coaster was actually really fun. It is in desperate need of a retrack, but I was pleasantly surprised by it. 51 is Reptilian at King's Dominion. I was one of the few La Vibora fans, so seeing the same concept done way better was great. Bobsleds are such a unique model, and this is a great example of one of them. 50 is Daredevil Dive at Six Flags Over Georgia. I don't have many feelings about this ride. I like the drop, a lot of the inversions are fun, but it's kind of forceless. It is one of the smoothest coasters I have ever ridden, but it could have way more bite to it. 49 is Hang Time at Knott's Berry Farm. This is like the opposite of Daredevil Dive. It's non-stop action and its trains run like a shopping cart on square wheels. I do enjoy its inversions and its drop, but a middle ground between these two rides would be amazing. 48 is Sierra Sidewinder at Knott's Berry Farm. I got some spinning that rivals the Pandemonium clones on this. This is such a short ride that packs a punch, and it's one that I can never skip coming to Knott's. 47 is Arctic Rescue at SeaWorld San Diego. This Intamin truly surprised me. One of my favorite family coasters. Its twists and turns are addicting, and its launches are surprisingly punchy. It's very re-rideable, and I hope the others of this model are just as good. 46 is Invertigo at Kings Island. This is an inverted boomerang, and I had a ton of fun with it. Of the boomerangs that I have done, it's at the top. Smooth and forceful. 45 is the Raven at Holiday World. I got 2 rides in the rain on this wooden coaster, and they were insane. It has some solid airtime throughout, but unfortunately I was too focused on the rain droplets hitting my face at 50 miles per hour. 44 is Lightning Rod at Dollywood, probably the most disappointing ride I got on this year. It has no bite to it. It feels like it should be going 5 miles per hour faster. The airtime is weak, the other forces are non-existent. I didn't care much for it in hindsight, and I wish I liked it more. 43 is the Late Anaconda at King's Dominion. This ride had a really solid first half, a nice drop into the lake, and 2 forceful inversions. A fantastic hang time filled finale with the corkscrews, but its middle section just dragged it all down. If the middle section wasn't so boring and rough, I would have ranked it higher, but it's holding it way back. Unfortunately, this was the latest victim of the Six Flags purge, and I won't be getting any more rides. 42 is Corkscrew at Cedar Point. I actually really like this ride. The drop is solid, the airtime hill gives some insane ejector. The inversions are great as always. It was just a nice and simple aero looper. 41 is Wild Mouse at Cedar Point. I love the spinning on this ride. Zamperla knocked it out of the park. My only wish is that it was longer. 40 is Thunderbird at Holiday World. This launched wing coaster is an adrenaline rush from start to finish. The launch is punchy, the inversions are forceful. At some parks this would be number 1, but the quality of Holiday World's coasters only put this in 3rd. 39 is the Prairie Screamer at Trader's Village. This ENF miler is awesome. There is so much violent airtime and laterals throughout its layout. It's like a runaway train the way it picks up more and more speed as it goes through its layout. This is an out of control experience everyone needs to try when in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. 38 is Twisted Timbers at King's Dominion. I didn't care much for this ride. The ride starts out really good with a unique inversion to kick things off and giving great sustained ejector airtime through those camelbacks. But the rest of the ride is just painful. Its airtime is abrupt and it hurts. The other elements are just kind of filler. I wish I could have ranked this higher, but it really didn't impress me. 37 is Zambezi Zinger at Worlds of Fun. This ride was shockingly fun. I've heard so much hate for it, but I love all the twists and turns it had to offer. Great airtime, long ride, that's good in my book. 36 and 35 are the Racer at Kings Island and Racer 75 at King's Dominion. Both of these racing wooden coasters are toe-to-toe. I do prefer the alternating lift speed on 75, but the rest of the ride is equally great on both. The racing is awesome and the airtime is decent. 34 is Accelerator at Knott's Berry Farm. I was spoiled by King Daka's launch because this one did not impress me as much. With that said, it's still a really forceful launch, and the top hat gives way better airtime than Ka ever did, but the following overbanks are just kind of there and the ride shakes a lot. It's good, but it doesn't live up to the hype. 33 is the Prowler at Worlds of Fun. This GCI wooden coaster is some of their best work. My one ride was fantastic and I'm hoping to get some fresh re-rides soon. 32 is the Bat at Kings Island. This aero suspended coaster packs a punch. The swinging is great, there's tons of positive G's thrown in there. It is fighting with Ninja at Magic Mountain for my favorite of the model. 31 is Backlot Stunt Coaster at King's Dominion. This family launch coaster was surprisingly great. It has some great forces and the effects are awesome. I just wish more of them worked. 30 is the Beast at Kings Island. This is like the ultimate backyard coaster and I am all for it. It's nothing crazy, but its weirdness is very charming. 29 is Electric Eel at SeaWorld San Diego. This was my first Skyrocket 2 and this ride blew me away. The launches are great, the hang time is terrifying, and the airtime is unreal. It took me way too long to get on this. 28 is Big Bear Mountain at Dollywood. This is one of the best family coasters I've ever ridden. It's nothing crazy, but it's full of twists, turns, launches. It's the full package. Not to mention, it never ends. 27 is Wild Eagle at Dollywood. My first wing coaster was awesome. Unpopular opinion, but it's forceful and gives an amazing night ride. 26 is Thunder Striker at Carowinds. This is easily the weakest B&M hyper I have done, but it has a really solid first half. The speed and airtime were great, not as bad as people say. 25 is Tennessee Tornado at Dollywood. This aero looper is rather short, but it makes the most of its layout, delivering forceful inversions at amazing airtime. 24 is Dominator at King's Dominion. This is some of B&M's best work when it comes to loopers. It is easily the best floorless. Such a dynamic layout, great forces, great inversions, and a little airtime sprinkled in. 23 is Gemini at Cedar Point. This is classic aero at its best. Tons of jank and airtime. The racing is just the cherry on top for this amazing ride. 22 is Grizzly at King's Dominion. This was a surprise hit, one of the smoothest wooden coasters I have ever ridden, with great airtime and laterals. 21 is Mystic Timbers at Kings Island. With so many great wooden coasters at Kings Island, this one is easily the best. An out-of-control ride through the woods full of twists and turns. 20 is Steel Vengeance at Cedar Point. This one is this high simply because of how good the first half is. The first sequence of elements up until the mid-course is some of RMC's best work to date, but that second half just drags. It feels like it's going through the motions and not in a good way. The ride overstays its welcome and is another disappointing addition to my credits. 19 is Thunderhead at Dollywood. This is GCI's best work. Thunderhead is like a runaway train hauling through its layout. One of the best wooden coasters I've ever been on and easily the best ride at Dollywood. 18 is Millennium Force at Cedar Point. The sense of speed on this ride is insane, but that is all it really excels at, so I can't put it higher. Still a fantastic ride. 17 is Diamondback at Kings Island. One of the best B&M hypers. The splashdown is amazing and the airtime is great. I just wish the rattle wasn't that bad. 16 is Maverick at Cedar Point. A similar situation to Millennium Force, but this ride is a bit more dynamic. It's great at everything, but it doesn't really excel at anything particular. 15 is Orion at Kings Island. This ride has some killer elements, the helix being the best of it, but I just wish it was a little longer. 14 is Mamba at Worlds of Fun. The airtime on this ride is some of the most intense on any coaster I've ever ridden. Violent airtime and a forceful helix. What a ride. 13 is Superman El Ultimo Escape at Six Flags Mexico. This ride is like Mamba dialed up to 11. The airtime is scary at times. The positive G's are through the roof. My only complaint is that the finale could be better. 12 is Silver Bullet at Knott's Berry Farm. This ride is like Raptor done right. It's one of my favorite inverts, period. Airtime, positive G's, Silver Bullet is an adrenaline rush from start to finish. 11 is Afterburn at Carowinds. Never has an invert tried to rip my face off quite like this one. From start to finish, it's a powerhouse that has you pinned to the back of your seat. One of the best rides Carowinds has to offer. 10 is The Legend at Holiday World. Do not sleep on this ride. At times it puts the voyage to shame. The highlight being that unbanked helix giving some of the craziest laterals I have ever experienced. 9 is Copperhead Strike at Carowinds. Mock Rides is slowly becoming one of my favorite manufacturers, and this ride is partially responsible. It's full of so many great inversions, giving hang time, air time, the whole 9 yards. I just wish its launches had more bite. 8 is Banshee at Kings Island. What can I say that hasn't been said already? This ride is slept on far too much. It's the best of the inverts dialed up to 11. The best B&M invert, period. 7 is Air Force 1 at Fun Spot Atlanta. This is so close to being my favorite RMC, with its near perfect sequence of elements, but that ending just had to ruin everything. This could be so much higher if it had a different ending. 6 is The Voyage at Holiday World. This is one of the best wooden coasters in America. It's a never-ending ride into the forest filled with airtime, laterals, and some decent positives from time to time. It's running a bit rough this year, but that hardly takes away from the amazing experience this gives. 5 is Magnum XL 200 at Cedar Point. What an amazing ride to kick off the top 5. Magnum is one of the craziest rides I have ever experienced. The airtime is honestly scary at times. The first half is really solid, good forces and full of all that jank that arrows are known for, but the second half tries to kill you. Those final hills are some of the strongest airtime I have ever experienced. This is my favorite ride at Cedar Point, and it easily makes top 5 of this list. 4 is Medusa Steel Coaster at Six Flags Mexico. I was not expecting this to be so high. Of my new RMCs, this one completely blew me away. This ride has some absolutely insane laterals and airtime moments, some of the best inversions on any RMC, and such an amazing pace to its entire layout. I expected Superman to be the star of this park, but Medusa is one of, if not my favorite RMC I have been on. 3 is Ghost Rider at Knott's Berry Farm. I have never ridden a wooden wooden coaster this aggressive. The only thing close would be El Toro, but something about Ghost Rider just hits different. It's such a long ride that never gives you a moment to breathe. The airtime is amazing, the laterals are shocking, and the ride is one of, if not the best wooden coaster in the world. 2 is Intimidator 305 at King's Dominion. There are few rides I would call out of this world, but Intimidator 305 is way up there. In all ways, this ride is an anomaly in the coaster world, something that shouldn't exist but somehow does. The things this ride does to you need to be experienced to believe. The aggressive airtime, the violent switchbacks, and the insane sense of speed. I-305 is one of a kind, but it's beaten by one ride for me. Number 1 is Fury 325 at Carowinds. This has been at the top of my American bucket list for years now, and I finally got on it back in July. Where do I even start? The fantastic drop, the positive G's, the twists and turns, the amazing airtime, and the unmatched sense of speed in the front row. Fury 325 is a powerhouse from start to finish, and is easily my favorite new roller coaster of 2024. But that's just my list. Did you get on any new rides this year? If so, feel free to comment your favorite one. If you enjoyed this video, I have one popping up in the card right now that I'm sure you'll enjoy. I'll see you there.